on your table. So if you could, as a group, if y'all could just answer those questions and post them in the correct column on the T-chart. No, that's for something else. There's a, this is the article. Motivation matters. The clock says 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Do you all need maybe like 1 or 2 more minutes to be able to discuss the article?
Sure.
Yes, ma'am. Motivation matters. If you need a couple of more minutes, I'll add that on if you need it.
Where's the article?
It says motivation matters. It should be about 5 copies at your desk. I mean, at your table. And the article is pretty lengthy, so I would just encourage you to skim through it, and then just go ahead. You can read it on your own time. But answer those 2 questions at the bottom. What are the challenges of keeping students, especially male learners, engaged? And then secondly, what does student engagement look like in the classroom? If you can use the sticky notes to put your responses on, and you can post them up here. Based on the article, based on your own disposition, it doesn't matter. Here's a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. Y'all just want to pass it around, and I'll pass it around on this side as well. Everybody can take one. Well, you know what? Let me take that back, because I want y'all to see something real quick. Let me take that back. Have y'all passed it out yet?
No, sir.
Okay. I don't want to. Okay. I'll pass that out in just a moment.
Okay, that's how we do it.
We have exactly 4 minutes, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. And it says 2 sticky notes, but if you want to put more than 2, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. reached the 2-minute warning, so if you can start wrapping up your thoughts and your discussions.
It's 5 minutes saved in the morning.
No interest.
All right, we're under less than a minute. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What's wine? All right, so good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Awesome, awesome, awesome. First of all, I just want to let you all know that I really appreciate you taking the courtesy of attending my PD. This is the first time that I've ever really done a PD by myself. So this is new to me. But I'm excited to be doing it with such a professional, intelligent, and intellectual group such as yourself. So I just want you to give yourselves a hand of round of applause for that. So I want to welcome you to Play at Your Own Risk. We're going to take a contemporary approach to exploring effective, research-based teaching strategies that create a powerful and positive classroom culture for all students, especially the 21st century male learner. Let's see what we got. So why it's not working, but we'll work on it. All right, so the reason I asked you to bring your laptops is for two reasons. The first reason is for you to log on to this hyperlink right here. Each of you were sent an email that has the hyperlink. And the way we're going to use this hyperlink, how many of you are familiar with today's meeting? So it's a cool way to ask questions, to give feedback on whatever professional development event that you've attended. But the way in which we're going to use it in this particular PD is throughout the PD, if you have any questions, any comments that you would like me to answer, if you could just log on and type them in. And as we go through the PD, I'll just take a look at the screen and answer those questions as we go along. That way we're not stopping and you don't have to keep your hand up in the air for a long period of time like my boys get tired of doing. So if you just have a question, just put it in there and just remind me to look there to answer them. So what I asked you to do as you were coming in was to read Motivation Matters, 40% of high school students chronically disengaged from school. And then after that, I asked you in your groups to answer the two questions. What are the challenges of keeping students, especially male learners, engaged? And then secondly, what does student achievement look like in the classroom? What does it look like in the classroom? So what I would like to do right now is if I could have one representative from each group to come over here and just share what your particular community learning group came up with based on those two questions. Just one representative. Thank you, Ms. Oslenberg. Thank you, Ms. Rutherford. Yeah, well, let me make sure I got one from each group. I got one from here. I got one from where did you come from, Ms. Murphy? Right here? All right, I got somebody over here. Can I have somebody to represent this group right here, please? And then can I have somebody to represent, is that the first grade team? If I can have somebody to represent the first grade team, please. All right, go ahead.
Okay, for the first one, it says, what are the challenges of keeping learners engaged, especially the male learner? We said viewing their issues from a female's perspective and understanding prior social struggles, things that are taking place at home, maybe not having that father figure or whatever, but just doing it from a female's perspective and not totally understanding it as a male. I don't understand the black male struggle or who, you know, the struggles that they have because I haven't dealt with them. I hear them, but I haven't gone through it, so it's totally different. The next, you want to the other one?
Yes.
Okay. What does student engagement look like in the classroom? We said students collaborating in group discussions using appropriate dialogue. Group discussions, yeah, that's the same. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, you want to stay up there, please? You could.
We basically gave a perspective from coming from special classes, was a little bit different. So I said that male learners tend to be easily distracted by their surroundings, like especially in like the gym or in my class, they get a lot distracted around with their surroundings. So that could be something keeping them from being engaged. And engaged students are actively involved. They're discussing whatever's going on in the class, and just when you come around, you see their attention.
Okay. Sandra?
Okay, ours was basically isolation, lack of community involvement, and also lack of interpersonal relationships with other, not just other people, but with other men, with family. Everybody's just kind of isolated in their own little world. And then engaged student engagement, I should have been a little more specific, but that is when students are collaborating together on the topic, because they can collaborate real well.
Right. Oh, yes, what you're saying. Okay, our comments pretty much mimic those that have already spoken, so we're going to reiterate by saying, when it comes to the challenges, kind of piggyback off what Ms. Rucker said, we as female teachers been able to provide developmentally appropriate approaches and strategies to instructing the young male, so that's somewhat of a challenge. And then, what does the student engagement look like? We too said that collaboration among students, but that focused collaboration among students. Focus means that it's on topic, it is on the correct standard for
Awesome. Awesome.
text.
All right, so we can have the last two groups quickly give their thoughts.
We said the challenges, boredom, the short attention span, low interest, low self-esteem, not believing that they can do it. And how to student engagement, we said hands-on things, high interest materials, incentives, concise activities.
Okay. Is that everybody? Well, awesome. I think all of your comments support what we're trying to address here. But I wanted to bring up a very important point. It seems like from what I'm hearing that a lot of you were saying that the challenges that you're seeing with your young men really focuses around social skills and character building, and which goes hand in hand with behavior. And if you think about behavior, you can't be academically successful if you don't have a student that understands what's important when it comes to their behavior. It goes hand in hand. For the sake of this for the sake of this PD, we're really going to focus on the instructional side of things. If I ever have an opportunity to present to you all again, I definitely want to focus on how do we address students when it comes to those behavior challenges, so that we can push their academics forward. Okay? Thank you, ladies. But before you sit down, because you all were so nice to come up and share your thoughts, you all are going to participate. So the name of the PD is Playing Your Own Rhythm. So let's go.
Well, you got the next
All right, let's give it up. So again, I want to welcome you all to Play at Your Own Risk. I'm sure that song kind of took a lot of you all back. However, I wanted to play a little play on words with that song because, you know, a lot of times students see the classroom as just work. It's just work. But, you know, as teachers, we have to transform our classroom to a playground where students don't see it as something I have to learn. It can be something that it just comes natural. And they realize in the process, oh, I'm learning something. And as teachers, we have to transform our minds to look at education as not something that I prepared over the weekend and now I got to present it to my kids the next day. It's got to be fun for us too. And so what I want to do today is just look at 6 strategies, effective teaching strategies, that some of us might already be familiar with. And I might be introducing this for the first time to some. But I think it'll be helpful as we move forward into the second semester. And as I introduce each effective teaching strategy, I'm just going to give you some examples of what that might look like in a classroom. So this is the agenda. We already read the article and discussed that. Just went over the purpose. We had a little dance off. So what we're going to go into now is introducing each ETS with the visual. We're going to create and present an activity using a given ETS in cooperative learning groups, which you already are in. We're going to match activities with the given ETS. We're not going to match them. What I'm going to do is give you an opportunity in your groups to just list as many activities or examples of that particular ETS that's given to you. And then we're going to engage in a gallery walk. And then lastly, you're going to complete an online survey just telling how effective the PD was for you. All right, so these are the 6 effective teaching strategies. The first one is cooperative learning, graphic organizers, role plays, activating prior knowledge, personal connection, journaling, and Socratic discussion. By show of hands, how many of you are somewhat familiar with some of these effective teaching strategies? How many of you are already using them in your classrooms? Okay, awesome. That's great. So when we think about cooperative learning, basically cooperative learning is when you split students up into groups based on their ability levels. And it provides students an opportunity to build those social skills as well as lean on their peers to support them in areas where they might have weaknesses. But then be able to come to or create some type of culminating activity or project. Some examples of that would be centers, workshop, experiments during science, group anchor charts, skits, songs, raps, etc. Of course, the infamous Think, Pair, and Share. And then Ms. Lambert, I'm sure we're all familiar with Ms. Lambert's Elaborate cards. I know in our class we use them a lot during writing. So if you can turn your eyes here's just one example of how we use cooperative learning in our groups. How many of you have allowed your students to break up into groups and create anchor charts? Okay. How has it worked for you, Ms. Rucker?
It works pretty well. I have I guess they'll call it a high group,
Okay.
high potential kids. And they might create their own little things, and I can take them home as well.
Okay.
To study from.
Okay.
So as a group, they're creating, they have interactive journals, and they'll take them home. So as opposed to me making them, it's kind of a competition. Whichever is one of like events, then that's the one that I recreate as well.
Awesome.
So they might.
Awesome. And just a segue, I know that the PD is tailored to addressing the needs of the male learner. All of these strategies can help the male learner. But towards the end, I'm going to show you some elements that are very important when you're dealing with or when you're teaching those male learners. So I don't want you to leave here saying, well, I thought this was about male learners. All of this can help the male learner. Thank you for that, Ms. Rucker. That's one example that you can use. One thing that I would suggest you do when you're doing group anchor charts is give everybody a role. Because a lot of times what I found is that when you just give a group an opportunity to do an anchor chart, everybody is fighting over who's going to do what. And, you know, it's just easier when you give roles so everybody knows what they're responsible for doing. Oh, no. Good question. So an example of the role would be like, maybe you have one student that's a presenter. Maybe you have one student that's gonna write. You might have another student that's artistic. Let them be the artist. And then lastly, you might have another student, what did I say? Be the writer. They might have good handwriting. They can just write. Ms. Rucker, you want to say?
I was gonna say that, I know with my group, they change every now and then, as far as within the interactive, inspired classroom. It gets to the point where they don't even fight over it anymore because they'll say, well, you write better, so you go ahead and write. I'm gonna put this up. They kind of create, they pick their own role. They don't fight over it anymore. At first it was that way, but they determine who's good at what.
Exactly. All right, so let's move on to graphic organizers. So I know we're all familiar with graphic organizers. When I came into education, the only time you heard of graphic organizers was when you were dealing with students with disabilities. But as I've been in the teaching field, I've realized that graphic organizers can help anybody, especially on the elementary level, because a lot of students, from what I see, struggle with structure, and steps. And so if you just give them a bunch of information, they might understand it for the moment, but if they don't have something to guide their thoughts, they're going to get lost. And you sitting there like, well, I just taught this to you. And you getting aggravated because you know you did the best you could do to teach it, but the student's still not getting it. So graphic organizers allow you to provide that student with that structure when they're in instruction. So some examples of that would be T-charts, which like what we did here. The Frayer model, Miss Grant does an awesome job with using Frayer models in her class. I think it's an excellent tool to use. Cornell notes, that's something I didn't learn about on until the high school level. However, I've seen it become very beneficial to elementary students. KWLs, we're all familiar with that. Checklist for problem solving. So how many of you are familiar with Saxon Math? So that's the spiral curriculum that I was introduced maybe a couple of years ago. But what I enjoyed about Saxon Math is they have something called a power-up. And in that power-up, they do like math facts, and then they do mental math, and then the last part is a word problem. And then the word problem is broken up by questions. So the first question might be, what information is given to you? Well, what do you do with that information? Well, did you follow the steps that you were given? So it breaks down how to do that word problem and allows the student to go step by step. And I have all of these materials. All of them are not soft copy, but if you want it, just stop by my room. I'll make sure you get it. And then lastly, the checklist for comprehension. So this is a picture of the checklist for comprehension. One thing that I've noticed on the 5th grade level, well, just in my class, is that students love to talk about what they think the right answer is. But they don't have no information to support. Right. And that's challenging. That's really challenging. Because you want to tell them, well, bro, where you get your answer from? Well, I watched it on TV, and they said on 48 Hours that when this happened, and that's not how it works. So this graphic organizer helps you to force those students to actually support their answers with evidence. And so if you look at, you probably can't see it, but it's broken up into columns. It says the page number, it says the text feature, and then it says what was the information that you received from that particular, that passage to support your answer. So that's another tool that I think would be helpful as far as graphic organizers. I'm sorry, I didn't even show you the visual. So how many are you familiar with the author's purpose pie? So I'm gonna pass these around. This is more beneficial to our lower grades because I think that's a 3rd grade standard, if I'm not mistaken. But for our higher students, for our students in the upper grades, Miss Harris, where's Miss Harris? Miss Harris, I went by Miss Harris's classroom one day, and she had this really cool graphic organizer that she made from a manila folder, and y'all can pass the rest of them around. But the way it's broken up is you fold the manila folder like that, in the middle like so, and then when you open it up, there's pockets. There's pockets on each side. And in the middle, you have an area where hers was more elaborate than this. This is the best I could do. But You got your Cornell notes in the middle, but then you might have an area for definitions. You might have poems that the student might have poems that they've made, pictures that they've drawn, study questions, and they can just stick them in those holes, well, in those pockets, and then when they study for an exam or a quiz, they can just use that as a resource. And it's fun, you know, because they're able to, you know, pull things out, you know, motor skills, you know, that's what they like, you know, they like to touch. So it's something fun for them to do without them just looking at a piece of paper at night and saying, I gotta memorize this, okay? This makes it a little bit more fun. So those are some visuals that you can take with you. Role plays. Now I'll be honest with you. If any of these ETS strategies are my favorite, it's role playing. And role playing allows you, or allows the student to step outside of who they are and become something that they're learning or become somebody that they always wanted to be. And when I think of role playing, I think a lot of like social studies standards. So for a student, instead of a student learning that Abraham Lincoln was the reason that slaves were freed due to the, Emancipation Proclamation, instead of teaching them the facts, let them act it out. Let them really see what it was like to write that document out, to interact with people during that time. So I love role playing. I love it. I love it. The kids love it. So I think it's a real cool strategy to use. And you don't have to just use it with social studies. You can use it with math. You can use it with science. You can use it with any content area. But I love role playing. And I want to show you two examples of what I've done with my students, or what I've seen done with in other classrooms. The first one is, and you should have this at your desk, there's a, will the real Abraham Lincoln please stand up? And basically this is a Reader's Theater skit. And I know there's a component of Reader's Theater with great habits, good readers, something like that. There's a component to that particular curriculum that provides Reader's Theater skits. But I think this is really powerful. Actually, Miss Muse introduced this strategy, well, this activity to me. And I've just found it to be very, very beneficial with my students. Another one that I just had in my hand, I don't know what I did with it. So when I was at Tri-Cities, we did a PD where they allowed us to see what it was like to be an adult and have to pay bills. So we were given a particular, we were given a job, we were given a family scenario, whether we were single, were married with a child, had a high school diploma, whatever. And what we had to do is we had to go to different stations and we had to purchase things based on our income. So there was if you look through the handout, it's at your desk, there was a resident station, there was a vehicle station, there was, it was everything that you could possibly think of. And I promise you, when I did this activity with my kids, it was amazing to see the thoughts and the dispositions that they had about the activity. You know, and it made them think, not only were they learning decimals, because we did it during the decimal unit, not only were they learning decimals, but they were learning the value of being accountable, being responsible, making good decisions. So it goes back to that whole character building piece that we were talking about in the beginning. But I promise you, if you do that activity in your classroom, it will blow your mind. The kids will blow your mind based on what they come up with from that. Activating prior knowledge. So activating prior knowledge is, I think, one of the easiest strategies to use because it allows you to meet the student where they are, based on where their level of schema is. I've often used this at the beginning of my lesson. when I'm trying to introduce a concept and I ask the students, well, you know, what does this remind you of, or what do you already know about this particular concept? Some of the examples of that would be KWLs, concept walls, I'm gonna come back to that. Journals, brainstorming charts, artifacts, symbols, and pictures. How many of you have ever heard of concept walls before? Ms. Jackson, would you mind explaining what a concept wall is, please?
Kind of is the same block, and instead of having like your standards, like a standard wall, that you have one subject and or one concept, and the students actually develop the wall themselves instead of you going up there and putting all the information on it. So they would introduce.
Solar system.
Yeah, solar system, and then they put what they think, they kind of develop, you know, like what they think it is, and then the way we did it was what they think, kind of like the KWL, what they thought it was, what they learned about it, different definitions, but it was all based on that one concept they were talking about. And then it stayed up in the room, and then they could go and look at it and use it as an artifact throughout the whole lesson.
Exactly. Very well said. It's basically a bulletin board in your classroom. And students have the opportunity to, you know, post, like Ms. Jackson said, anything that reminds them or connects them to whatever you're learning in the classroom. And it helps the teacher out because a lot of times we get, you know, bogged down by having student work up. It's an easy way for the student to be in control of their student work. You don't have to ask them to do it. You might come in one morning and the student is like, hey, Mr. Lyles, I printed this picture of all of, you know, the whole solar system right here. Can you put it on the concept wall? And you just keep adding, and by the end of the semester, or the end of the unit, you got this wall, this mural full of activities and different artifacts and things that the students have brought in. So it's really cool, really, really cool. And real quick, there's an activity that I did on Wednesdays last semester, I had a young lady from Georgia State come in and she tutored the kids. And one of the activities that she did with them, because I had shared with her, you know, I'm having some issues with my boys having evidence to support their answers. And so what she did, all of you should have a Carmelo Anthony stats sheet and a LeBron James stat sheet. Boys love sports. Most of them, well, a lot of them do. I'm not going to say most of them. Some of my students are very artistic and they're more engaged in the fine arts. And you got to address that too. You can't assume that all students are just love sports. But at any rate, a lot of my students do. And so what she did with them is, a lot of my boys like to talk about LeBron, who's better, LeBron James or Carmelo Anthony. And so what she did, she asked them, she said, well, how do you know he's the best? Is it because he got the latest shoes out, or is it because, what's the reason why? So what she made them do is she made them look at the statistics. And from the statistics, the students had to say, well, I think LeBron James is better because if you look at his season highs and career highs, when he played Dallas, he scored 39 points. That was LeBron James, but then when Carmelo, his season high was 45 points. So Carmelo was better because he scored the highest points. So they had evidence to support it, but at the same time, they talking about sports. And you talking about boys jumping off the wall. I mean, they was jumping off the wall, but they was learning at the same time. You gotta make sure that I just think that's a cool activity to do with the kids. So it supports the whole activating prior knowledge. Personal connection journaling. So personal connection journaling is just a special word for saying make a student write in a journal. Okay? So for my lower grades, one cool thing that you can do, instead of just giving a kid a prop, you can do what you call a trade journal. And with a trade journal, what you do is you put, it could be a stuffed animal, but I put something my mama gave me when she came the last time. She gave me this man that was graduating, right? So, but this could be a stuffed animal. And what you do is you just put all types of postcards in there from all over the country. All of these are from Atlanta because I had to put this together last night, so I went to CVS. I just got what they had. But this could be St. Louis, this could be LA. And what you allow the student to do is they take that stuffed animal on a trip and they write it in the journal. And so one student, Billy might take it home one day, Susan might take it home the next day, Monterio might take it home the next day, Kilolo might take it home, she might take it home the next day, but then at the end of the week or the month or the unit, you have all of these stories based on, all types of, postcards and things that they have inside of their little bag. And it's fun for the kids. And then it's also an interactive activity that includes the parents. Because they can take this home and the parent can do the story with them. They're just not sitting at a desk writing a story for 15, 20 minutes. So we can get ourselves together so when Dr. Crosby come in and Mr. Payne come in, we ain't looking like we ain't doing that. So, but it's a cool activity. Now for our older kids, each of you should have this at your desk. It's a Facebook template. And you know what? I saw a teacher do this a couple of years ago, and it blew my mind. I could not imagine how you could take something from social media and create some type of activity from it. So basically what this student did is I guess they were studying Reconstruction or the Civil War. And what they did is they made a Facebook page for Abraham Lincoln. So if you look, what I thought was, I changed this. It didn't say this at first. But if you look under Abraham Lincoln's name, it says, "Can't wait to go to the theater with Bay." So
That's how you feel right now.
right, that's how he was feeling. Unfortunately, he didn't come back. That's how he was feeling at the moment. But if you look at, they've got posts from different political figures and historical figures during that time that are leaving comments. You got Harriet Tubman down there saying that, basically Lincoln, get right. Just get right, man. Get right. But this is a cool activity to do with your kids because it makes history relevant to where they are right now, and it makes it fun. It makes it fun. So that's an example that you can use when it comes to personal connection. Hold on 1 second, y'all. I think Miss Harrison wants to.
That was my first year ever teaching middle school. It was real hard to get the middle school attention, and I did that. And they all was like, boom. I mean, they were just involved. I was like, oh wow, this was okay.
Yeah.
But I didn't do like a real one. I just, they did it. They took the pictures.
Mhm.
They, cut and pasted them, and they did it themselves, and they loved it. Some chose to write it out, and some chose to do it on the computer.
Okay.
But engagement,
Yeah. I mean, it's an excellent activity. All right, so I just noticed that we had 3 questions up there. I apologize. So what are Cornell notes? Do I still need to answer that? Because I know I showed it in one of the.
Yeah.
So basically, you sure?
Yeah, she did.
Okay. Our comprehension checklist created by the teacher.
I didn't get clarification of
Okay, I'm sorry. So what happens is, so what you do is you take a sheet of paper and you ask the student to fold it like maybe 1/4 of the whole page. And what they do is on the, what's that, my left side? Yeah, on this side. So on this side, you write down the word, or maybe the main idea, or a question, essential question. And then on the other side, you might draw a picture to represent it. You might write the actual definition. For math, you might say adding fractions. On the other side, you show an example of what that looks like. But it structures it in a way where it's easy to read.
And then one piece that this is missing, also is really good at the bottom. You take the lines about here, and at the bottom they have a summary, so they take those questions and those notes to summarize their learning. So it's very, very,
Thank you, Ms. Person, I appreciate that.
Thank you for the clarification.
No problem. Our comprehension checklist created by the teacher. The one that I showed you up there was created by a teacher. If you can find one, that would be awesome. But they're not hard to create. It's just a matter of creating a table and just putting and organizing it the way you want to organize it. I haven't created one yet, but what I'll do is I'll create one and just put a soft copy in there so when I send it out to everybody. I learned rewarding students for academic achievement tests is less effective than rewarding them for accomplishments they have control over. So let me read this again. That's a strategy. Reread, right? Let me reread. Hi, I learned rewarding students for academic achievement tests is less effective than rewarding them for accomplishments they have control over. Basically, also the article actually talked about that. It actually talked about rewarding students for meeting a standard on a test. A lot of students don't test well. And at the end of the day, students, the measure that they want us to have, encourage students to meet might not be the measure that really represents where that student is. So we have to meet that student where they are. So if they're making progress, although they don't meet the standard on the assessment, you have to build them up. You have to support them. You have to give them positive praise for that. Because if you don't, you're going to realize that they're going to end up falling to the wayside. And it comes back to that whole motivation piece. How are we going to motivate those students that we know are struggling, that we know are not going to be all A/B on a roll or straight A's? They might have a couple of C's, all C's, but we still got to support those students as well. Good question. Where do you get the Facebook template? I'll email it to you. Okay? I have it, so I'll email it to you. How do we get administration to understand that they are improving? You know what? That's a good question. That's a good question. Oh, it says, how do we get administration to understand that they are improving academically, although the numbers show otherwise? I think it just goes back to the whole, keeping up with your data, and that's something I struggle with. That's something I struggle with. At the end of the day, administrators want to see results. They want to see results that make, and then we got a powerful leader and a good, genuine leader. But at the end of the day, their scores have to reflect that everybody or the majority of the students in their school are excelling. So I think this is just an opportunity for you to have those personal conversations with your administrators or with our administrators and say, look, this is where my kids are. And it's all about your approach. It's all about your approach and when you do it. If you're doing it at the end of the year, then it's not going to probably go as well as you're doing it after the first month. So it's about consistency. It's about consistency. But Rucker, that's a good question. That's a real good question.
I just wanted to add that they do see it because in leadership, one time Dr. Carlson said that those scores, those benchmark, several scores, do not match what he sees going on in his classroom, and it does not match the work he sees put up in the hallway. So they do realize that kids aren't performing to what they do. So he sees, he knows we're doing this.
Socratic discussion. All right, so the Socratic discussion is similar to activating prior knowledge. But basically what it is, and each of you should have a handout at your desk that has like different types of questions that you can ask that aligns with Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, that aligns with Bloom's taxonomy. And basically, Socratic discussion is just pushing those higher order thinking skills with your students. Getting your students to think critically. Instead of just asking, what's the answer to the problem? Ask them, well, allow a student to work a problem out, or you work a problem out, intentionally make a mistake, and have a student go back and figure out where you made the mistake and what you should have done. So just encouraging your students to think critically. Now, the important elements for teaching boys. We did some of them today with the kinesthetic movement, with dancing, moving around, coming up and leaving sticky notes up here. But these are some of the elements that you would want to include when you're teaching young boys. Project, make sure it's project-based, competitive, kinesthetic, making sure cooperative learning is going on, make sure the activities are student-centered, has a constructivist approach, provide those spatial and visual learning opportunities, technology, pictures, comic strips, storyboards. A lot of our students, I'm a visual learner. And in this generation, a lot of our students are visual learners because they some of them stay in front of TVs or in front of some type of social network. So they're visual. Offer them choice. So instead of saying, we're going to do this first, give them the choice to say, do you want to do this first? Do you want to do this first? Do you want the lights on? Do you want the lights off? Give them that choice. So when you have to make a decision, they won't be like, dang, you don't never give us no choice. They can say, well, you know what? She did say we could have done this or this. So I understand why she's not giving us a choice this time. Character building activities. Include the family, parents. When you're dealing with boys, include the fathers. Even if they don't have a father at home. If you know somebody that can come in to stay for like a couple of minutes, do that. Reach out. We can provide more opportunities like we did with a football player came. That's a good opportunity for those boys to see positive images of what a male looks like, so it motivates them. At the end of the day, we need to motivate these boys, and just all students. And then single gender activities. That always helps too. What I wanted to do, we're not going to do. What I wanted to do is I wanted to give you all an opportunity to create an activity based on an effective teaching strategy that's at your desk. But I think together we've done a good job of explaining what this looks like. Do you agree? Yes. I think so too. So we don't have to do that. Before we end, I want to show you a couple of books that I thought, that were beneficial to me while I was preparing, and that have supported me through my professional career. There is a writer called named Jawanza Kunjufu, and he is an educational consultant that specializes on how to teach and meet the needs of young, specifically black males. So if you have an opportunity to read some of his literature, I would encourage you to do so.
Can you send me that name spell?
Yes, ma'am. I can do that. My last principal introduced a book to us called Yardsticks. And what it does is it tells some stories about different students at different age groups. Because sometimes we can be disconnected as teachers. And we don't understand why students do what they do, why they think the way they think. And this provides some support to that through stories. Also, Teaching Boys Who Struggle in School is another good book. I haven't read this all the way. As you can see, it's kind of new, so the honest truth is I haven't picked this book But the title sounds good. So, if you want to read it, you can. When I was doing my graduate studies, one of my classes was about effective instructional strategies. And although the professor was awesome, this book was a great resource. So if you ever want to look at it, you definitely can. Like I said, the next time, if I have the opportunity to present, my last school, I had the opportunity to work on a team with a group of people from Yale University. and they had a character building program that they wanted schools to be a part of, and we were one of those schools that they chose. And this book just provides some character building and social skill activities that you can do with all students to build a classroom culture where, you know, everybody feels like they can learn and everybody feels comfortable despite, you know, whatever differences that they might have. So you want to take a look at that. And then lastly, this is the Bible when it comes to education. Any challenge, any deficit that you see with the student, this book has an intervention for it. So I would encourage you, if you have an opportunity, look at this book because it is big, but it's helpful. Especially when it comes to like dealing with RTI and SST. This book is your best friend.
I'm
Okay?
happy if anyone needs to see it also.
Thank you. Take it out the door. Last thing I want you to do, and if you please could do it before you leave, I would really appreciate it. If you go to this survey, there are a couple of questions that I would like you to answer in regards to how effective and how much you enjoyed the professional development seminar today. If you could do that before you leave, and then after that, I want you to kill that table over there and get as much food as you can. I've got a couple of subs still left. If you want to take some for your little ones at home, please take them. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge Ms. Deborah at Subway over in the plaza. She sponsored the food for this event. So when you get an opportunity, just stick your head in and just say thank you, Ms. Deborah. And before you leave, the very last thing, how many of you like shopping at School Box? All right, so I have a 20% coupon off of your next, I think it's your next purchase at School Box. So if you want to grab one of these on your way out, you can also, and I've got extra ones too. So if you want to take it to your colleagues at other schools, or even colleagues that didn't attend this PD, take a couple of more to give to them as well. Thank you for your time. God bless you. Yeah, it's in your email.
Trash. me.